Is this new method changing the way you cook barbecue ribs forever? Let's find out. But these are...
Big thanks to Napoleon Grills for sponsoring this episode.
Recently I've been on an experiment spree finding out if we can make barbecue taste better. You see, it all started when I watched a video of Leroy and Lewis cooking their beef cheeks in beef tallow. But it's not actually cooking the beef cheeks in beef tallow, it's more holding them. So first you cook them on the barbecue, and once they're fully cooked, you put them in a bath of beef tallow. Now of course, after these tests I figured we're onto something. This might be actually something that changes barbecue. But it's not really changing barbecue unless you tried it on pork ribs, because that is the cornerstone of barbecue. And that is what we're trying today. So I picked up my favorite ribs, some delicious baby back ribs. These are the kinds that have plenty of meat on them, and if you bite into them, they're mostly succulent and juicy and tender. So they're perfect for what we're going to do. Except the only thing different to what I would normally do is the seasoning. I'm going to start with the pitmasterx Texas barbecue seasoning. And the reason that I'm choosing this instead of the pork seasoning is because I want a clean experiment, so I can have the ultimate experience of the meat being tender. Well, at least hopefully, if it works. Of course, I'm going to put them on the barbecue, and that's why I'm going to fire up the trusty Napoleon kettle grill. First, I'm going to create a direct zone and indirect zone. Then I'm going to put in some light charcoal, followed by long burning coconut briquettes. And a fire starter, of course, to light it up, some whiskey barrel chunks for smoking, and then the grill grates go back on. And once the fire starter stops burning, it's time to put the ribs on, of course over indirect heat. Then I'm going to close the lid, open the top vent all the way, and close the bottom vent almost all the way. And that is going to give me a smoking temperature of about 120 degrees Celsius, which is around 245 degrees Fahrenheit. My guess is that it's going to take at least 1.5 hours before the ribs have the smoke color that I'm looking for. It's now an hour past my 1.5 hour that I said, and it took way longer. The mahogany red color, a little bit of brown from the smoke, and of course a dry bark on the outside. I'm gonna close the lid again, because it took me 2.5 hours instead of the normal 1.5 hours. That's because the temperature was a little on the low side, and it took a lot longer for the smoke wood to catch on. But the funny thing is, if you measure the core temperature, you're always at 70 degrees Celsius when you have the color. At least that's my personal experience. And that's why I'd rather cook to temperature than to time, because it's almost double the time that I expected, but it's exactly the same temperature that I expected. And normally this will be the moment that I take on the next phase of the cook, which would be to wrap the ribs, put a little butter, a little bit of sugar, maybe some barbecue sauce on it, and then just let it cook, let it become nice and soft. But not this time. This time I'm going to go naked and let the ribs continue to cook. Even though that means I'm going to let them dry out even further compared to if I would wrap them up in aluminum foil. And that's because at the end we're going to do the beef tallow hold method. So it only took 5 hours to get these ribs to the point where I want them. I need them to be buttery soft. And this is what that looks like. Buttery soft. It means when I stick the thermometer in, it just falls through the ribs. It's gotta be soft, it's gotta be tender without it falling apart. And since the beef tallow hold method includes not wrapping it, we've just got the most beautiful bark on these ribs. Take a look at that color. It's just magnificent. We got the mahogany red, we got that nice crispy exterior, we got the smoke color, we got the bones popping. Everything comes together, except for one thing, and that comes with cooking it unwrapped for a long period of time. It means your ribs are going to be less juicy because all of the moisture inside the ribs is mostly gone. Now, what would we typically do to let these ribs recover? We would let them rest. Just wrap them up, set them aside, let them rest in a little bit of aluminum foil, or cook them even in aluminum foil, and let them soak up the fat again that it expelled. But not this time. This time, we've got our own little bath. I'm going to take them off the barbecue, and I'm going to slide the ribs straight into the beef tallow bath. There we go. Ooh. Second one goes in. Make sure they're fully submerged. This one's a little longer. And currently the bath is running at a temperature of 78, about 85 degrees Celsius. So now I'm just gonna switch off all the burners except for one and leave that at the lowest setting. Because I need that beef tallow to go to a temperature of 65 degrees Celsius where I'm going to hold them. And I'm going to hold them for at least 3 hours. And then from that point on, I can just serve them out whenever I want, even if it's a day later. This is the magic trick that's going to change the barbecue world. Because if you think of it, you're going to start barbecuing in the morning, and then around noon, you're just going to take everything off, slide it down into a beef tallow bath, and you might have that sitting in your oven. You don't have to put it in a barbecue. You can just set the oven to 65 degrees Celsius. You know, if the wife says, "Hey, honey, guests are here, time to eat," whoop, slide out the ribs to start eating. If it works, because I don't have any other clue than this is the first time that it's been done. So, if it works for beef, then will it work for ribs? See you on the other side of 3 hours. The moment of truth. Is this going to work or not? I'll let it sit here already for about 15 minutes. Look at them sitting in their happy bed. This is like a happy place for ribs. Now, I have good hopes for this. It smells absolutely fantastic. Is the result going to be as good? I didn't remove the membrane because I wasn't sure if it would hold up. I'm just going to set them down on the board and then we'll see if this is the worst idea ever. Now, before we get into like, should you use beef tallow or should you use just pork lard? My train of thought was, if we can fry fries in beef tallow, then we can also use the beef tallow hold method with the original beef tallow. Otherwise it wouldn't be the beef tallow hold method. Let's just go check this out. I'm so curious. If anyone would show me these ribs without telling me how they were cooked, I would salute you. I would congratulate you on the looks of your ribs, because it is whatever I want to see. This is it. There's nothing more that I want before I eat. Without further ado, oh my word, that is super soft. Okay, you saw that the slicing, okay. I'm gonna do another one. It is so soft that basically the meat falls apart till it holds together enough where it still makes sense, but I have to cut a little more careful. Every kid is now watching this with their dad and saying, "Dad, can I have my ribs like that?" Just look at this. We got the perfect smoke ring. We got the exterior. We already established that this is everything you want, but then you pinch it a little bit. See how soft it is? See how well spread out the moisture of the beef tallow is? Wow! Cheers, guys. Stop texting me. These are the best ribs of my life. Ever. Even with the membrane on. I do want to test without the membrane, but I think keeping the membrane on might be a good idea. But they are like, they are perfect. They're absolutely perfect. A 10 out of 10 on everything. The looks, 10 out of 10. The crosscut, the smoke ring, the looks, 10 out of 10. First bite, there's crust, there's bark on the exterior. So that first bite is like all these little dots of flavor, the seasoning, the smoke, a little bit of the juice from the grease. And it's a real bark, so it's really, you're biting into something. But then everything turns soft and delicate and becomes like this magical thing. And you're eating the most juicy, tender ribs you ever had in your life. I mean, I had some ribs. I had loads and loads and loads and loads of ribs. More than I dare to admit. They really do take barbecue to the next level. Just look at that. That first bite, that is insane. And honestly, I don't even miss the sugars and the sweetness and the stickiness. It is sweet, it is sticky, it is sweet from the caramelized pork. It is absolute perfection. I must conclude for myself, and you have to do your own testing, but I must conclude for myself that these are the best ribs I have ever eaten. Because the beef tallow hold method works on ribs. Wow, Jim. Wow. Ga je nu bellen? Hallo. De allerlekkerste spareribs die ik ooit in mijn hele leven gemaakt heb. Ze hebben alles.
Let's go.
Ja, echt.
Lekker.
Ja, het is echt een probleem voor
ben wel
barbecue in het
nice.
algemeen.